Hello, everybody. I'm going to say that again in English. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Scratch My Noodle. I am your host, Jeff Macolino. This episode's going to be shot with my voice. Um, Joining me today is the wonderful Claire Campagna. My God in heaven, I'm not going to be able to say a sentence without. Should I start over? I think I'm just going to start over. I'm just going
Start
to write
over. And
11:10.
if we need to
Jesus.
reschedule, I'm good. You just let me know. I'm
No, no,
saying
no, no,
goodbye over
no.
here.
No, I'm gonna keep all of this actually. I'm not gonna
Oh,
cut any.
even better.
Oh, yes. Hey, this is what happens sometimes. I don't know when people are gonna watch this, so I don't need to be afraid of people thinking like for my podcast, I've been like, hey guys, don't mention I have COVID because I don't want people to be like weird. Like, but it will probably be like 3 months. So it's like, yeah, I had COVID. I'm over it. We're
They're gonna
not in
be
the
like,
same room,
hang
everyone.
on, when didn't I have dinner with you that night?
Well, that's the thing. By the time this comes out, it'd be like, well, if you got COVID already, whether it was from me or not, it's really past its, too late.
There's no way for us to confirm at this point who it came from. So
Yes, yeah. So I'm in the clear. So apologies in advance, folks, for my brain being a little scattered and my speech. I wasn't going to go into COVID right off the bat. I still haven't introduced my guest because I can't say. I think now I've spoken enough. Hopefully, I can get through Claire Campagna. Is that how to say your last name?
Campagna, like lasagna.
Campagna. Yes, I knew
Yes,
it. Yeah, I got it right when we talked on my podcast. No problem.
you did. But you know what? It's COVID brain. We're gonna give it to you.
Well, Claire, you're hosting the rest of this episode. Take over.
All right, everyone, welcome to the show.
So Claire, thank you for coming on the show. And oh, goodness, you're probably like, what have I gotten myself into? Um,
I'm ready. I love it already. This is fun.
yeah, this is going to be some fun, weird thing. Claire, tell my audience. Let's get started with this way. Tell my audience a little bit about yourself and what you do, where they can find you, all that stuff.
Yeah. So we'll give you a coughing break. I I always struggle to say like what my title is, what I do, but at the moment, what feels most appropriate is just calling myself a self-discovery coach. And I would say currently I am really leaning towards working with a lot of entrepreneurs just because that's what I'm enjoying and they seem to be the most interested in it. The very long story short is that I came from a pretty successful corporate position and I hated my life despite it all looking great from the outside looking in. And I went down my own little self-discovery journey and it led me down pretty much every rabbit hole that you can think of that would entail. And the two that really stuck the most with me were astrology and human design, despite my engineering background. That really resisted those pretty hard, but I ended up resonating with them the most, and they told me the most about myself. So that's what I fold into my work is I kind of approach self-discovery through those two lenses. And you can find me on Instagram at Claire period Campagna. Hopefully you'll have my name typed somewhere so people don't have to figure out how to spell that. And then my
Yeah,
website is just my name, clairecampagna.com. And both of those I would say are the two best places to connect with me.
cool. So, and for my audience, I have spoken with Claire at some length before on the Jeff Macolino podcast. You can always go check out that episode if you'd like. Um, and I
We'd
think
like
that
you to go do that. You know what? Just go do that.
it's always a good suggestion to check out old Jeff Macolino podcast episodes. They age really well, I'm told. I honestly have not been told anything about old episodes, but um, that particular episode, I will say, I remember I actually had one of my favorite responses was to that episode. I was doing ads for a company, and the marketing guy for that company emailed me and said, "Wow, that conversation between you and Claire really hit home for me." And sure enough, a couple months later, he sent me an email saying he was leaving to pursue other interests, and I'm like, I think that had something to do with me and Claire.
Wow. I'm like covered in chills right now. That's actually wild.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah,
listening, I'm so glad. Props to you for leaving, whether it had to
yeah.
do with us or not.
Well, I'm like, I hope it. I was thinking, I'm like, I mean, he could have been fired, but I choose to think that it was an optimistic, like he was choosing to leave a corporate structure. Not that there was anything wrong with the company, or I wouldn't have done ads for them, but
Right.
I can imagine that not everyone working, no matter how good the company is. I think this is something that came up in our last conversation. I knew it was time for me to quit my corporate job when I'm like, I have a great boss, I have a cushy job, I have very little pressure on me, and I still hate myself every day. It's time to
Exactly.
go. It,
Yeah,
it's
that
it's easy when you hate your job, you work for a shitty company. It's easy in that scenario to want out.
totally. It's like a relationship. It's like it's harder to leave when nothing looks wrong. But you can feel that there's a massive disconnect and it's not where you should be and it's not taking you where you want to be moving forward. That's yeah. Mine was a little less enjoyable, but nothing towards the company. It was just like I worked in supply chain during the pandemic, so that was just trash right there.
Yeah, it just sounds like fun. So,
It was a lot.
so one thing we didn't dive into a ton, and I thought this is good conversation for this conversation here on Scratch My Noodle, is I mean, you mentioned the astrology and human design, and that's really stuff I don't think we really got to all that much when we spoke. We spoke more of the kind of concrete parts of leaving the corporate world and all that stuff. Um, I always Well, I'll say it the way I think, and I'm not saying this with any sort of malice. Astrology is one of those things I have the hardest times, like I don't know if I want to say believing in or grasping.
Mhm.
And you said something interesting about your engineering background, and I'm like, I wonder if that's part of it. Not that I have an engineering background, but the way my brain's approaching things, like past life regression is an easy thing for me to comprehend and understand and wrap my head around. Um, a lot of these spiritual things are similar to that, where I'm like, I get it. I don't know that I can say I 100% believe in it all, but at least I can wrap my head around it more. Whereas astrology, I think I understand the idea, right? But I think I have a harder time with it than others because to me, I keep like wanting to kick down the door, like, no, no, no. They don't, the stars don't tell me who I am. I make my own choices in life. And I think sometimes, this is where you'll be able to help me. I think sometimes you listen to astrology people and
Mhm.
it seems like it's a predestiny, like, this is what's going to happen, it doesn't matter what you do. And I'm like, well, then what's the point of existing? Like, I'm just here to let the stars dictate everything in the world. Like, that doesn't seem like it's life. It seems like I'm just part of a cog in a machine, which
Mhm.
is part of the reason I hated the corporate world. Yeah, there you go. Came full circle. Um, so I think you probably can see the flaws in my rationale a little bit, but you understand what I'm saying as far as having a trouble with it. How did you? It sounds like you kind of had similar maybe issues grappling with it when you dove into it.
For sure. And I love this conversation so much because I think a lot of people that would call themselves astrologers would just like immediately be like, well, you're just not open-minded and move on, you know? And it's ultimately, I don't think there's flaws in anything that you just said. I think that's a really reasonable way to approach anything. like of coming at it with critical thinking and wanting to understand why. If people are saying something so definitively, why then prove it kind of mindset. And I think I have so many thoughts around this. As you heard, like, yeah, I have an engineering background. I have a very, the first part of my life was very much like, give me the logical, rational, tangible reasons why I should believe or subscribe to something. Um, and ultimately, I think when I think of beliefs in general, like what even is a belief, and I'm probably just, this is my own, I haven't Googled this or anything. I have no idea what the actual definition of a belief is. Like when I think of what that means to me, it really is like, to your point with past life regression, it's kind of thinking of what's something that seems like it could be plausible. And I also want to subscribe to it. Like I
Right.
like it as well. I like the idea of it and it seems plausible. To me, that's kind of what people choose to believe in. I think that's why a lot of people choose to believe in religion. Like there is a component of it where you you want to believe it. You like it. It makes you feel good. you know? And so I think for me, it's like I don't even definitively really believe in anything. Like I am always open to somebody offering some sort of, you know, evidence or perspective that could shift the way that I feel about something, astrology included. And that infuriates people who want to get in an argument with me on this topic. Like, I don't, I don't think it's something to be quote unquote believed in, I guess, is the best way to kind of summarize that. I think it's a system that if it is being approached in a definitive black and white forecasting type of way, like you just mentioned, where it's like there is no free will, this is what it is, watch it play out, not into that. That is not the way that I would view it. The same way I think, people are going to laugh like me over here saying astrology compared to like the health industry, but the same way I think a lot of doctors wouldn't be on the same page. It's like there are
Hmm.
doctors who treat the medical industry like what is in the book is valid and nothing else outside of it is. There are doctors who are like, no, I think that we can pull from other angles and we can also recognize that you're a person and you probably know your body better than I do, even if I went to med school. Like, so anyway, I say it from that angle of that's kind of how I approach astrology is like I'm sharing potentials. To me, it's all about pattern recognition. It's a system based on geometry at the end of the day. And I was good at math. I have an engineering degree. So like that was something that came relatively naturally to me. I could easily see the pattern recognition in people's charts and like kind of connect the dots between what this map was telling us of where the planets were when you were born. And ultimately, it's just, thousands of years of patterns recorded of saying, like, hey, when Jupiter was here, these people exhibited these behaviors. And I'm telling you potentials. There's a high road, there's a low road, there's a million points in between. I don't ever want to say it as this means X and that means Y. It's like you get to then fill in the blanks of what that actually looks like for you personally, which is why, one Libra can be completely different from another Libra because they're both exhibiting absolutely different angles of the same thing.
Right. And that's where I do think your metaphor with the doctor is almost beautiful to me because I get in this discussion over things like alcohol consumption. Like, oh, they recommend. Of course, I was fine until it was my turn to talk. They recommend no more than 2 drinks a day for a man and one for a woman, and it's like, but who says? Like that's a one size fits all. I know some people. If my mom drank 2 drinks of my drink, she would probably get sick. I mean, even if it was just an ounce and a half, the way you're
Mhm.
supposed to drink. I don't think she could drink 3 ounces of whiskey and just drink it. Period. Um, me, I can drink a liter of whiskey, and I drank more than that last night, and I was up at 7 a.m. and got all my stuff done. I'm here a few hours late. Like, it's like there was no consequence to it. You know, I know some people who, if they drank as much as I did, excuse me, if they drank as much as I did last night, they'd be in the hospital, they'd be dead, they'd be hungover. Um, you know,
Me.
yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the other part of it is there are people who wouldn't have a Monday.
Mhm.
You know, kind of like I was talking about the one day with COVID that just
Yep,
it's like it wasn't a day, it just was hell. That's a lot of people do that to themselves with alcohol. And I
totally.
think those people are insane. I don't know. I would never drink if I got hangovers. Um, so that's where I kind of think that it fits is that, and another thing doctors tell me, they say, never quit alcohol cold turkey. You got to wean yourself off. And I'm like, no, I'll tell you on the day we're recording this, I'm going to have my kids the next 6 nights. I'm not going to sip alcohol. And now medically, they think I should go through withdrawals and have serious
Mhm.
medical issues. I will not, I promise. It's just I'm just different. Like you so to me, I
Yes.
actually like that comparison because I do think there is a problem even in the medical field of one size fits all.
In
Whereas,
every field. I
yeah,
hate when people blanket statement things. I get when you're doing it as like a general and a lot of people are impacted in a certain way, but it's back to the definitive black and whites. So many people speak in definitives, and I just think there are very few, if any, things in our human reality that actually are one or the other. There are so
right.
many flavors of how things can show up, and like to me that's part of why I love astrology. It's like this showed me all these different facets of myself that it's not like I was unaware of them. Like I knew about all of these things, but I had never had them kind of mirrored to me before, and it was wild to be like, oh shit, that's real, that's actually there. Like these parts of myself that I had locked away, I'm like, that's, I knew that was there.
Is it kind of like this is how I'm kind of thinking of it in my head. And again, you let me know if
Yeah.
this makes sense. Um, Again, I'm going to correlate it to something else because which is probably funny because I would guess some people watching this would think, no, I buy the astrology, I don't buy where he's going. But I'll liken it to the past life regression again in this way. It's I've said this to Daniel.
Mhm.
Uh, eh, like part of me thinks it doesn't matter if it's real. Um, Going through the process is really more about examining yourself and learning about yourself, or maybe figuring out something in your life, figuring out how to make it better or fix it or how to deal with it. Um, in the end game, if that problem is fixed, does it matter if it was real? Ultimately, not. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. The same argument could be made with astrology is you can see things that, you know, patterns and things like that that you can uncover about yourself and use it as a tool. And I guess God is a great example of this too. You know, if someone asked me, "Do you believe in God?" I'd say yes. If they said why, I would say because I want to.
Right.
It helps organize chaos for me. Is there is an ultimate creator up there? Um, so that's why it's not like I have evidence that I mean, astrology. You actually would have some stuff you could point to. I think more so probably than someone could with God. Well, I'm probably wrong about that too, but who knows? But it's I think that's kind of maybe where the flaw in my skepticism is with astrology is I don't need to see proof that it is real as much as that it can actually help guide people.
Yep. That I love that you're blasting through your own skepticism right now because yeah, that's exactly, to me, that's what it was. Like ultimately, I stopped caring if it was quote unquote real or not. And if people were going to think I was crazy for being so into this system, I stopped caring about other people's perceptions of it, I guess. And
Hmm.
as soon as I stopped caring about that, I was able to form my own opinion about it. Um, and I think that's where I remembered that I am a person who's open to anything that is going to help me to be the person that I want to be and a better version of myself. I'm using my air quotes with better, but like, I think you're spot on with that. That's one of the things that I always point to with it is if you feel so vehemently against believing that this is something you can, even explore, my first question to you is why? When did that opinion form? Why do you care so much about it not being real or being provable? Because let's be honest, there are plenty of things that aren't quote unquote provable that we know are real, or we don't have, even if they're provable, we have enough context to support that it's likely, if you will. Like,
Yeah.
so that's where it's like, I don't know. It's just interesting that this has become such a thing that gets bullied so hard when really, to your point, I really don't care. I really don't care if it has helped me and all of the clients that I've worked with to shift and move through really challenging things and ultimately create versions of our lives that are way more fulfilling and way more aligned with us than what we were previously doing. It's like, I don't really care what system did that, whether it's this or Myers-Briggs or, fill in the blank. Religion, to your point, like, cool. I don't care if I'm not a Catholic or fill in the blank religion. If I see that it literally made you a way better person, then you go for it. If that's the thing that worked for you, then cool.
Right. Right. I wonder what that is with just a flaw in humanity of not minding our own business, or is it needing to be right? So like, well, they can't be right, or then what I think is right isn't right, so they can't be right.
I I think yes, partially. That's definitely real for sure. That's a
Yeah.
thing. I also feel like with astrology specifically, I mean, this is just my own what's coming up for me right now. I think it's a couple things. I think number one, it's such a widely criticized, publicly criticized thing that I think people are scared to be into it. You're either in the bucket of, quote unquote, believing it or not. And you're gonna discredit yourself if you do in some circles. I think especially for men, I think a lot of men are scared to say that they believe in it because because it's so shit on publicly from the by the masses. I think a lot less than it was even 10 years ago now, but it still is for sure. And you don't want to be the one dude in your friend group that's like, oh, you're a Leo? Okay. What does that mean? Is it helping you get the ladies? Like, I don't know. Like, people are just, you're not going to get a good response from that from the general public. So that's one. I think we all know that like most people are not willing to go against the crowd. And then
Right.
um, the other thing I would say goes back to what you were saying earlier, which is one of my biggest pet peeves about it. And I think why, even as a person who's always been pretty open-minded, I was always still resistant to it because a lot of the people that have the stage with astrology, or a lot of what we grew up reading in magazines and things like that, they do speak very definitively. And I tend to automatically question any validity towards anything where people talk about it like that. And again, I think that goes back to like, okay, that's just the practitioner. That actually has nothing to do with the system itself. And you're now disregarding an entire system because the people that you've seen talk about it aren't doing it justice.
Right. Right. Or they're not speaking about it in a way that resonates with you specifically.
That's a better way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's interesting, and I guess I'll bring up a couple of things that have bugged me. But again, I think you answered the question with that very last part of, because that is something. While you were talking, I was thinking the stereotype is, yes, women gathered around the newspaper, the magazine, and in the office, giggling over their thing. And then everyone who's born the same month as me has the same, and it's like, I do remember I was a manager, and there were four of us, and we all were Sagittarius by the newspaper edition of, I know there's a lot more than just your birth, being born in a month, but
Right.
one of the ladies is like, yeah, we're all the same. You got to deal with all four of our same personalities. I'm like, none of us are the same. Like, we are four very different people. We have
Hmm.
we get along, but we have no personality similarities, which is kind of the reason we worked well together.
Right.
Is it's, we from high strung to laid back and everything in between, the super perfectionist and the, yeah, it's fine, it's good enough.
Mhm.
And that was me, of course. It's
Yeah,
good enough.
naturally. I knew.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I did say, it's such a terrible thing to say. Side note, what? God dang it! I feel like I coined it, and everyone's like, "No, no, no, that's not the way you say it." I'm like, "No, it is the way I say it. That perfect is the enemy of great. Like, if you strive for perfection, you're
Mhm.
going to miss this great stuff. You like, great is great. You don't need to be perfect. Just be great." I think the saying is something like "good is the enemy of great," meaning you shouldn't stop at good, you should be great or something. And
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
no, 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 I like it the other way. Like,
Do you
perfection.
remember this? I feel like I might have mentioned this the first time we talked. Maybe not. That was my family motto growing up. The opposite of that, obviously. The opposite. But it was my maiden name is Kraus. The Kraus family motto is good enough is not enough. It is ever the enemy of the best. And I literally remember even as a child being like,
Wow.
no, actually inherently good enough means that it is good enough. That's
That's
bullshit.
that's what the words good enough
Yeah,
literally
that's
means.
quite literal. I remember even as a kid being like, not subscribing to that. All right.
No, I don't think we talked about that. That's some weird
That's weird then.
summoning stuff right there.
Yeah.
I have some powers, I think, of some sort. I don't
Now
know
we need to
what.
look at your chart.
Yeah, no, I do have an odd tendency to, like, mind meld with people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
totally a thing, I think.
yeah. Well, it's a gift or something. I don't know.
Highly attuned.
Yeah, we'll go with that. I'm not just a fat drunk alcoholic who
There's
sits
so much
who
more
sits
to
around.
me.
I'm a highly spiritualized not guru, something. I don't know. I'm
Shaman.
really good at words too.
Yeah.
I say words good. Uh
I derailed you, but I think you were saying part of what bothered you was the fact that everyone has you can all have the same sun sign, but like we're all completely different people. I immediately
yes.
don't believe this system now.
And the advice or the whatever, whether it's this is going to happen or this is what you're feeling, it's always so vague and
Hmm.
non-specific
Yep.
that it's like, well, yeah, everyone thinks that they're pragmatic. Everyone thinks that they're kind, like, yeah, I could write these. Just write general, mostly positive things, but don't be too specific.
Yep.
You're an independent, caring. Yeah, name one person who's like, I'm not independent, I'm not caring. Boy, I would hate that person.
They sound great.
Yeah, they sound like they'd be real fun to hang out with at parties. But I think, and this is not just a knock on astrology. I think that's a problem with a lot of the spiritual, metaphysical type stuff, where it's like, I mean, I don't want to pick on any because I'm not honestly thinking of any specific person, but like your name chart says that you're this, this, that. It's like, yeah, but so is everyone.
Mhm.
Or there was one more specific instance, and again, I understand it, and I don't know, correct myself here. I do not fully understand it, so it's not their fault that this is just one tiny takeaway that I noticed. But they said something about addiction being in my chart, And I'm like, okay, so that means everyone, I think that was a name chart. I'm like, so everyone named with my name is an alcoholic. No, addiction could be someone else in your life could have addiction, or you could be addicted to something else, or someone you love. And I'm like, but so everybody then,
Right.
like, I'm like, so that literally applies to every human being on the planet.
Mhm.
And gosh, this one lady wrote a glowing 4-page thing, and I still to this day I have this thing, and I'm like, I don't see how. All she wants, she did not listen. She swore she did not listen to podcasts or anything. She was just able to channel my inner being and wrote this fourth. She's like, some people I can barely get a page out. You, I could have written a book because you're so open, and I could sense that. And some of the things she specifically said in that thing were like, that is weird.
Getting
Um,
chills again because I can feel how weirded out you were. But
well,
yeah.
yeah, and one of the sentences I do remember, one of the sentences in it was, "The dreams you dream do matter." And I'm like, "Do you know what that meant to you?" She's like, "It didn't really make sense grammatically, but that's what came out." And I'm like, "See, to me, I talk about my dreams, like literally the dreams I
Mhm.
have at night all the time, and how I feel like there's something more to them." And then you just randomly wrote this in the middle of 3 pages. Like, again, it was one little sliver, and I'm like, "What the hell is that? How did that get in there?" And it again, and she didn't even have any clue. Like, she's like, "I don't know what," she's like, "It doesn't always make sense grammatically." And I'm like, That made the most sense of anything in the whole thing to me personally." She's like, "Well, that's obviously those words were chosen for a reason."
Yep.
Um, so there are super specific things that some people can do that are like, wow, that seems significant. But even then, it's like, or am I just convincing myself? Am I assigning a personal significance on some random thing that doesn't exist? So that's the self doubt that constantly like goes through with, again, not and I'll say with astrology just because you understand it well, but I think with almost everything, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, we're all narcissists. We're all going to see ourselves
Right.
in all of these things to begin with.
Yeah.
So that's where someone, I would say, I think the maybe a roadblock for me is being a narcissist who doesn't want to admit that they're a narcissist. So
I yeah, no, I think that's I have a post on this. If you haven't seen this, I mean it was from like probably 8 months ago or something like that. It's old at this point. But I posted common criticisms to astrology for this exact conversation because I think it's normal. It's a thing that like most people just immediately disregard it without necessarily even knowing why. And only when we dig into it like this do you figure out like the holes in it sometimes. And I think what you're pointing to, it speaks to what I was calling confirmation bias. It's like
yeah,
we want it to be true, so we're just speaking about it like it is. Like, oh, I can see truth in that. Yeah, yeah, we're gonna roll with that. And I think there's a ton of confirmation bias in astrology. And I think that goes back to, I don't even know if I've said this, but this is something that I just feel with anything, whether it's religion, whether it's the way that you view health and drinking, like fill in the blank about how you live your life and kind of like your credo, if you will. Astrology being one of those things, if you happen to be a spiritual person, it's like if you over identify with anything, then yeah, you're probably going to start warping your mind and having a lot of confirmation bias with it. Like if I'm over identifying with the fact that I'm an Aquarius and that becomes my new identity, and I'm always now just applying everything in my life through that lens, and like now anything I see about Aquarius is just like who I am. And I assume
yeah,
it to be true. Like, I don't know. I think that just bothers me. And I don't know, that's kind of a separate tangent, but that's what it made me think of. And I feel like there is confirmation bias that anybody can apply with it, which is why I always like to just not speak in definitives. Again, like when I'm reading someone's chart, I'm like, this could speak to these things. You don't even have to talk to me about it, but you get to fill in the blanks and figure out how this, kind of resonates with you. And always keeping in mind that this is a system to show you parts of yourself that you're not already looking at. It's not something to change the way you view yourself through the lens of like, oh, I guess this is who I am, even though I thought I was that person.
Right. And it's not an do you think it so this is probably a criticism, but it's more of a question.
I'm
Um,
liking it, so keep them coming.
do you think that it can be a crutch? Again, I'm thinking of one specific person in my past life who would fly off the handle and just be obnoxious. And then the apology was always, sorry, I'm a Libra, whatever the hell she was. She's like, we just can't help ourselves. And it's like, everyone else in the room can. Be a fucking adult. Stop
Yeah,
like raging through the office like a mad person because you want something your way. And then going on your apology tour, starting with, I'm a Libra, so I can stomp around like an asshole all the time.
totally. I think that that's actually in the post as well, because that infuriates me, and that goes back to why people get so, I think, heated at these systems, because a lot of people do that shit. And it's like, ultimately, this is a tool for self-reflection and growth. This is not a tool that excuses accountability. This is not a tool that should confirm your preconceived notions. It's meant to be a curiosity applied to it, not, oh, perfect. I knew I had an excuse for being an asshole when somebody triggers me in this
Right.
way. It's like, no, it's giving you context as to what triggers you to exhibit those asshole behaviors so that you can ideally not, kind of react on that end of the spectrum, because you know what the other end of the spectrum looks like now when you're looking at it through this lens. That's what it's done for me. It's like, oh, I'm all the way over here, and this is what's triggering it, because the chart can tell me the types of situations that can bring that up, my least favorite qualities about myself. And it's not, making me less accountable for them. It's actually showing me this whole other way that I could be behaving in those scenarios.
Right. Right. And that's the I mean, that kind of goes to the type of philosophy of just I don't know. I like it. It's the accountability. It's trying to solve problems with it, not excuse things because
Right.
of
Well,
it.
back to my engineering brain. I'm going to approach it as a problem solving tool. I
So
think
see,
there's people that go to therapy just to get confirmation that they're a victim. I mean, I think there's a lot of tools. Again, like, it's not therapy that's broken as a whole. It's the way that this person and potentially their therapist are approaching it. We all know people who do that shit. And it's
right.
ultimately like, you can also use that tool to see your blind spots and work through them and not behave in that way anymore, or not let people treat you that way anymore.
Right. And that goes back to the I don't care what modality it is. If you're
Mhm.
using it to effectively therapize yourself, we'll say.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I guess that's you have the perfect kind of brain to dive into something like this because you do have that engineering, always back there. So you don't go into it with the I think and I'm not dumping on anybody. There's not a person in mind when I say this.
Right.
I think this is kind of the negative stereotype that sometimes gets tossed around. And it's interesting because I'm like, I am, this is where it's an interesting position for me, being someone who's like, if you ask me, I know nothing, I'm an expert in nothing in spirituality. It's like, I like comedy, I like fart jokes, like, you
Same.
know, like I'm like football. I'll sit around and get drunk and uh uh watch the man show. I'm trying to think of a something gross, not gross, but you know what I mean. Like, oh,
You'll
he's
eat your Taco Bell hungover, and
yes, yeah,
yeah.
and watching women jump on trampolines. I mean
Right.
that's like I'm not an evolved man, but I feel
Please.
like I've got one like a toe in the pool. So like when I hang out with other unevolved men, and that, I'm not shitting
I
on
know, yeah.
my own people either, but I think the stereotype for some of them, like, oh, all those woo woo people who just want to, like just loosey goosey, just kind of learn all these different things, and they don't actually do anything. They just dive deeper and deeper into. Whereas if the public face of things like that was more of your attitude of, no, these are tools. We're doing this to make you better so that you can make more money. You could
Mhm.
make be happier with what you do. Um, because that's every guy would be like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to be happier and make more money or be in a job that I enjoy more. Okay, there. See, but you understand, like the
Totally.
sometimes and this is not a shot at you at all, but sometimes it's the messenger who ruins
Mhm.
the entire thing as opposed to the actual thing, which is a shame.
Yeah, I fully agree. And honestly, I could feel when I was getting into it that as much as, again, as much as I was resisting it, because I don't really want to play this role, I could feel that part of what I'm doing and why I'm so drawn to this tool is because I feel like I'm not saying I'm the best person in the world for this, but I do feel like I'm capable of bridging the gap between quote unquote normal people and this system that feels really weird and taboo and out there and kind of embarrassing to be interested in. And it's like, look, I was embarrassed too. I get it. But at the end of the day, like, it doesn't really matter if it literally changed my life completely for the better in every single way. To your point, like, I actually used it as a tool and I completely 180'd my entire life. And I'm so much happier now than I was 2 years ago.
Yeah, and it's also while you're promoting it, you're also not walking down the supermarket aisles and like harassing strangers like, "Let me do your star chart."
Yeah.
So I think that's again I think it's interesting how if I told someone, golly, if I told someone that I was talking to you and just said a little background, depending on if I just said talking to some astrology guru, I know the response most of my friends in real life would give me and what they would expect you to be like.
Mhm.
And you're not like that, and that's a compliment. But it's also an insult to my friends for, it's like we need to be more evolved and at least open to listening, not just judging because we knew that one stupid coworker who made us think, well, this, if she believes it, then it's obviously stupid.
100%. I don't think it's a knock to your friends either. I think that's just like human mindset to us to immediately think like that. And I think it's actually special people who don't think that way, who think very through the lens of curiosity always. That's like one of my goals since getting into this system is to always approach situations with more curiosity because it always serves me when I do. Like I think, yeah, like it's one of those situations where I don't want to be, I always joke, like, I don't want to be perceived. I don't want to be perceived, period. But it's nothing heats me up more than being perceived in a way that actually doesn't feel aligned with who I am. And that happens to me all the time for that exact reason that you just mentioned since I've started doing this. And it's super frustrating, but I think at the same time, yeah, it's one of those things where like the only way to kind of change that is by me not playing out the stereotypes and literally just approaching it the way that I do and trusting that if somebody is meant to, benefit from this system through me in any capacity, then the only way they can do that is by me just approaching it the way that I do and not caring about what people think in the process.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's working. Does one of the more enjoyable idiotic moments of my life was when I was talking, and this wasn't to you, this was before I talked to you. I asked an astrology expert, so if someone was born on the same day and time in the same hospital,
Mhm.
would they, and they just switched us in the hospital, we'd be the exact same person either way because we were born the exact same second. And she's like, no, that's not how that works. You can't be switched at birth. But it did. My younger sister had a baby early, but not too early, healthy and everything. But just yesterday,
Oh my
and
gosh.
I don't know why it
Congrats.
struck me. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I haven't seen her yet because you know I'm not
Fair.
invited in a
Please don't go see her
yeah,
yet.
no,
Yep.
no, no. I'm like, sorry, I'm gonna be on the sidelines completely for this one. I'll see you when you go back home, I guess.
Right.
Um, but I don't know what struck me. So we were there, group text messages. I don't know if, but everyone's been through something like this where, she, went to the hospital because she couldn't feel the baby moving. My mom went with her and she's updating and we're like, they need to just deliver this damn baby now. And with, quickly they're like, oh, she has a heartbeat. So, you know, that let a lot of concern off, but still she wasn't moving. Also, she hadn't been growing for the past couple weeks, which is not good at this stage of pregnancy. So I'm like, there is no purpose for them not to just take this baby now.
Mhm.
She was already going to have a C-section. So there's like no reason for this baby to stay in here. It just seems dangerous. Um, Now we're going through all that, and this is where this kind of struck me in an odd way. Of I wonder if an astrology person would now probably not if you were the pregnant person, but just in general be like, hey, we can have the baby, but it needs to be in the next 3 hours, or we've got to wait 8 hours because that's not a good window for
Mhm.
this baby to be born. Is So bizarre question. This was actually literally running through my head yesterday. Like, I wonder if an astrologist would be like, can they take her tomorrow? Or, just
Totally. This is where I would say, uh, probably not one that I would want to work with, but I think I think there are plenty of people who at least are interested in astrology. I think more so it would be those people versus the actual people who practice it, like, and have readings and things like that. That would be like, oh, my kid cannot have a Capricorn moon. We're waiting a day, and this kid's gonna have an Aquarius moon. There are definitely people that would do that because that's the biggest piece that would change in a 1 day span or multiple hour span, like you just mentioned, or the rising sign. And that, yeah, people would definitely say that. But again, I think that goes back to like, you are looking at this system black and white, and that's your problem number one. You're also trying to control things, and
yeah,
that's a huge, do not try to control things that are out of your control and then have resentment because your baby was born at a time that you didn't want them to be born at. That's wild. That you have other things going on that I want to address.
yeah. That's kind of what struck me too. Is you're playing God then,
Hmm.
right? Like,
Oh yeah.
which should be very against just what the whole thing is about the universe,
Right.
right? So you're now
Totally.
like fiddling with it.
Yes. And
Yeah.
and I think to your earlier point, because I actually have a kind of similar example to what you were saying of that you asked that other astrologer. I When I got into astrology, I started following some astrology accounts, and one of them that I followed, I found out through her posting that we have the same exact birthday and birth year. Not birth time, which means we have different rising signs, and I'm not going to get into like the details of everything that means. It does make us really different, even though every single planet was in the same sign when we were born. But we also have a lot of similarities, including the way that we like look and are shaped, which is really weird.
Hmm.
I know. But anyway, I just to speak to that a tiny bit because I think this is really what it comes down to me. Like, again, there's spectrums for every single placement and every single aspect in astrology. So like you could literally be born at the exact time in the same place, all those things, and still be completely different people, even being raised in the same environment, because there's different ranges of how those expressions can come through. But I think, like most things in life, nature and nurture are both playing a role. Like the birth chart being nature in this instance, like, yes, I think there are certain people who are inclined to be more motivated than others in certain areas of life, or like have more energy and want to work out, whatever, fill in the
Yeah.
blank. I also think the way that they're raised plays a role in that too. And this is where it's like, it doesn't matter if you're born at the exact same time and the exact same day. Like your charts aren't going to be the same in terms of how it resonates with you because you were raised differently, most likely.
Right. Well, yeah, I would assume so. And
Right.
even if you were raised by the exact same parents
Mhm.
who tried to raise you the exact same way, this is something I touched on with someone else on this show, was like you can that doesn't guarantee the children are going to interpret things the same way.
No. Also, your life experiences, the chances that something happened over the course of your life, like for twins, for example, where one experienced something and the other didn't, like that's just 100%. There's no way
Yeah.
that you're going through your entire lives experiencing every single thing the exact same way. There's just no way.
Do twins or multiples, do they cause any astrological oddities? Like, uh,
I've only read charts for one set of twins before, but they were very different. And I was actually nervous because it was one of the first times I ever read twins chart or that I was reading charts, period, excuse me. And I was like, oh man, I know them and they're really, really different people. And I was kind of scared. I was like, am I about to just realize that I shouldn't be doing this because this is a sham? And I actually felt so validated as soon as I pulled their charts because they were born within like 15 minutes of each other or something. But that was the exact window when the rising signs changed that day.
hmm,
And they were completely different people. And it was very clear their personality differences when I looked at their charts. And it was like, I think it was so freeing for the one who has struggled more with mental health challenges to see this because obviously there's a lot of comparison that inherently goes on when you have a twin
yeah,
and to recognize that they actually are very different. One of them has like the most social of all of the rising signs. Like she approaches the world as a bubbly, fun, social person. The other person is like the most emotional of all of the rising signs. And it's like could not be more different ways of how they just approach the world in general. So I just thought that was really, really interesting that that was echoed in their charts, even
yeah,
being twins.
yeah. That's got to be, not that this fully relates to anything, but it's uh, uh, that's got to be an interesting dynamic because I think of where my head went when you were talking about comparing yourself to them was like the movies where people get cloned, and that whenever there's a clone in a movie or a TV show, the clone and the clonee, whatever you call them, they want to kill each other. Like only
Mhm.
one of us can survive,
Mhm.
which I always thought was weird because I'm like, I feel like I'd get along with myself. Like
I don't want to hang out with myself.
yeah, we'd split duty. Like,
Mhm.
like, hey, you got to do the driving today because I want to get drunk on the couch. Or it just like like one of us is the designated driver, and the like, it would save me money.
Totally.
Um,
You're down to do the grocery shopping and I'll cook? Perfect.
you're right, right, yeah. Just hey, you host this podcast. I'm gonna take a nap.
Love
Like,
it.
it just. But twins, yeah, obviously. I mean, I don't know. I'd feel like that level of competition could be scary almost because could you imagine? I mean, especially if you're identical twins. Like I'm just thinking, like, could you imagine your twin is like? It's probably a bad thing to think, but like you're in college, your twin's getting all the tail he wants, and you can't get laid.
Yeah.
Would be like,
Well,
what's
I
what's
mean,
wrong
this
with me?
example that I'm mentioning, they are identical twins, and one of them was a D1 college athlete, and the other was not. Didn't even play sports, period. And it's like,
You
yeah, back to your point, I mean, that doesn't make the other person less than in any way, but it's hard not to compare and come to some sort of conclusion around that, even though outwardly no one's thinking that. Internally, I'm sure I would be feeling some type of way.
right?
I
Yeah.
I
Who
have
else are
thought
you
about
supposed to
this
compare yourself to?
extensively. I think about this like every now and then whenever I see twins, I'm just like, how? There are two scenarios. You're either best friends or you go through some massive comparison challenges, like more than any other, lay person can understand, because there's no person out there that I could even compare myself to that's that one-to-one to who I
Right.
am.
Right. Yeah. It's just that would be a hard mirror to look at.
Yes,
Like to never really thought about that until just now. Like that would I feel for all twins.
same. I think you need to have some twins on.
Well, I feel like that'd be great. Yeah, there might be a whole thing here. I'm gonna start recruiting twins. That won't come off as weird at all. Um,
Craigslist ad for
yeah,
twins.
I need twins, identical preferred.
Identical female
Yeah,
preferred.
female must be okay. Where what? No, where did it get creepy? Um, oh well. On that note, Claire, remind my audience again where they can find you.
So I think website, if you want to just see what I've got going. So that's clairecampagna.com. That's where you're going to find my readings and things like that. And then if you want to actually talk to me, I recommend my Instagram, which is Claire.Campagna.
Perfect. And the links will be below everyone. Well, we got our way through this one. I hope for the audience I edited out all of my coughing or my sniffles. If I did not, sorry. Um, Claire had to deal with it the whole unedited time. So
I
um,
kind of hope you didn't. It was nice. It added character, seasoned
y-
the episode.
yeah, no, I think I'll leave in like 95%, at least in the beginning when I couldn't even speak English and I was just all over the place. But you know what? Despite those stumbling over my own feet in the beginning, I think we put out a nice episode here.
I do too. I liked this conversation a lot. I think it needs to be had more.
Yes, yeah. Well, these are the conversations we try to have here at Scratch My Noodle. Thanks for watching.